Shay, Hotep. This is The Truth May Hurt. My name is Raymond Witcher, and again, I will be your host. I decided to do a part two of the eugenics programs in the United States still exist. This is a lot of information, and I don't believe most people heard of it or are aware of it, and it's a lot. And I've studied it quite a bit. So I decided to do a part two. And instead of asking you to look up some things, I'm going to present them to you. And then hopefully the things that I'm showing you will spark enough interest for you to continue to research. Excuse me. Truth is you can always find the truth for free. Anybody that's charging for the truth, they've already sold you a lie. Now, if I follow the philosophy that if someone is telling me something, they should be able to show me something. If you can't show me, and you're trying to convince me on just what you're telling me, I have a problem with it. I don't accept what people tell me. We've done that long enough, because now I'm back in a believing game. I'm back in a believing system that I need to believe what you say. Show me what you're saying. So in the previous video on the eugenics programs still exist, especially still in America, I showed you a lot, but there's a lot left to show. In regard to the eugenics program, I mentioned that George Bush and Margaret Sanger, back in the 60s, I think it was right around the time of Martin Luther King's death, or somewhere right in that civil rights era, is when they said we need to remove the black fathers from the homes in order to destabilize the black family. They came up with the welfare programs, the food stamp programs, and these other government assistance programs. But the caveat that they put on these programs is you can't have a father in the house. You can't have a man. You can't have a husband. That breaks up the family. Okay, that was part of it. The other part was they said they were going to use the black churches to control the black communities. They were going to use the pastors to control the populations, and the eugenics programs would strictly control the pastors, so that the faces of the eugenics program, Margaret Sanger, George Bush, white people, they wouldn't be seen. They wanted to be hidden. Okay, same thing in Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is full of black doctors, is full of black nurses, is in the black community, and you would never suspect that it is a eugenics operation. Okay, well, I'm gonna show you that it is. Okay, the whole reason that they were pushing birth control is to stop black women from having babies. You got to remember, I showed you in the previous video how North Carolina had a forced sterilization of black women. They really tried to eradicate the whole black population. You remember I mentioned to you that Hitler said that everything he did to the Jews, he learned how to do it from the Americans and the British and the Belgium, of how they did black people, how they were exterminating us through the Black Holocaust, through the African Holocaust, the Congo Holocaust, the Jamaican Holocaust, slavery and colonialism in America. These were some of the most brutal governments and things that were ever done to people on earth to this day. Okay, yeah, there have been a lot of wars and these things, but there's never been anything like the Holocaust on the African nations. Okay, so here you see here. Well, let's start here. Eugenics and the legacy of Sanger and Gates. So Bill Gates is a part of the eugenics program too. Okay, and you can open these up and you can see how serious they are. All right, history of eugenics. The eugenics movement was a potent political force in the early 20th century America. However, Its membership. It's just saying that its memberships were a little bit different than Hitler's. Jack with the soldiers of the Third Reich. Okay. But all of it is the same thing. Hitler was running the eugenics program. His eugenics program was a copycat of the American and the British and the colonial eugenics programs. Okay, as you come here, you see one of the original members of this crusade was Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood. Her unwavering support of eugenics as a means of achieving economic stability and improving public health, as well documented in her main essay, Speeches. The eugenics movement faded in the background after World War II. This is what I had in the previous videos when the Nazis started executing Jews in the Holocaust. However, it continues to exist and influence on the modern activities of Planned Parenthood. So it's telling you right here that the eugenics is still modern, active in Planned Parenthood, particularly regarding its relationship with African Americans and other minorities. It also can be seen in the philanthropic relationship of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Their tactics of combining climate change and addressing global health issues would make Margaret Sanger proud. Okay, so Bill Gates is picking up what George Bush and Margaret Sanger started. Okay, now we're going to get into the Negro Project again. This is eugenics, and I've mentioned that Black people, we are the most studied people in the world. I mentioned that they did a project study with rats, and they had them encaged, overcrowded, but as long as they changed their water, changed their bedding, fed them regular, they tolerate each other and got along in a community. But when they started removing the food regular, when they stopped changing their water regular, when they stopped changing their bedding and made them sleep in filth, they turned on each other and started killing them. This is the Negro Project. I mentioned that they used that study in that project to develop all of the inner city projects for Black people. They said if we crowd enough Black people in enough small places that is not enough room and give them no way out, they will start turning on each other and killing each other. So when you hear people telling us Black violence and Black on Black crime, that is a manufactured, socially engineered construct. It is. Our luck as Black people isn't that bad. A lot of the things and most of the things that are happening to us, especially in the inner city, especially in the places that have been named projects, it isn't an accident that where poor Black people live in inner cities is called a project, because it came from the Negro Project. Showing you, okay? So I'm showing you this. Okay, so the Negro Projects. We who advocate birth control, on the other hand, lay all our emphasis upon stopping not only reproduction of the unfit. Now remember, this is the Negro Project. Unfit, but upon stopping all reproduction when there is no economic means of providing proper care for those who were born in health. Margaret Sanger. This project is saying that we don't have room for anybody that doesn't meet our criteria, and we want to eliminate you. Sanger's most successful endeavor towards the goal was what she called the Negro Project. Listen, it's time to wake up, okay? It really is. Okay, and now as far as my era on earth, it's almost over. So I'm finding this out in my 60s. if my parents had taught me this from a child, the course of my life would have been different. Okay? This is why I'm saying we have to learn. We have to educate ourselves so that we can educate our children. This plot, this plan still exists today that goes against us. Okay? I don't want you to like it. I want you to hate it. I want you to say that I want to stop it. I want you to say enough is enough. I want you to tap out and say, I don't want to play this game anymore. Okay, so when you get down here, it says the propaganda. Now, propaganda is false information. Remember what propaganda is. And it says the propaganda of the Negro Project was that birth control meant better health. So on the premise, Birth Control Federation of America, later named Planned Parenthood after Margaret Sanger, designed 2 Southern Negro projects demonstration programs to show how medically supervised birth control integrated into existing public health services could improve the general welfare of Negroes and to eliminate nationwide education programs. So they're feeding you propaganda to make you buy into their birth control program. You guys would be much better if you didn't have babies. No, we would be better if you gave us a fair opportunity. We would be better if you gave us equality. We would be better if you would level the playing field. See, the football field they have us playing on is tilted, it's slanted. They're playing downhill and we're trying to run uphill. Level the field. We don't need you to plan our children. We don't need organizations such as Planned Parenthood in our communities that are there to kill us. Okay? That's what it boils down to. Okay, so when I was telling you that I mentioned that in the 60s, around a little before Martin Luther King's death during the Civil Rights Movement, George Bush and Margaret Sanger and the Eugenics program said they would use the black churches to control the black people. They would use the pastors to control the congregations. And they would use the pastors to strictly control the congregation. And the Eugenics program would strictly control the black pastors so that white people didn't have to be seen. Same thing in the Planned Parenthood, all black doctors, all black nurses. In the black communities and churches, all black pastors, all black bishops, all congregations. And here's what it said. Here's what she says. In order for the Negro Project to succeed, Sager emphasized the need to have influential black leaders, and especially ministers, educated in the goal of the birth control movement. So we're going to teach the pastors to persuade and condition the black women that you need birth control, you need abortions, you don't need to have these babies. This is done through the Church of Christianity, right? Sager knew black people were religious people and how useful ministers would be in her project. She wrote, ministers' work is also important and he should be trained perhaps by the Federation as to our ideas and the goals that we hope to reach. We do not want word to go out that we want to eliminate the Negro population. Read that again. We do not want the word to go out that we want to eliminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can strengthen out that idea if it ever occurs. Listen, if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. This is a control thing. If any of your members start standing up saying, hey, questioning this thing, because, what they call rebellious are people that are waking up saying, wait a minute. No. That's rebellious. Anytime you go against anything that Master says you need to do, you're rebellious. We need to bring you back in line. We need to get you in order. And who are they going to use to do that? The Negro ministers through Christianity and the church. And what did they say they were going to do? I'm not making it up. The minister's work is also important, and he should be trained, perhaps by the Federation, as to our ideas and the goals that we hope to reach. This is not a goal that they're trying to reach to benefit Black people. Okay? When I tell you that the church has been our biggest enemy, they need to burn them down. The next protest Black people have that wake up is to walk out of that church and never go back. This is your church. The Bible says, God says, I don't dwell in temples made by hands. We don't have any business in a church anyway. Unless you're in there to have a social fellowship. If you're in there to worship and think God is there, he's not. God said, I don't worship in temples made by hands. So whatever temples left is it for God to be in? The temples he gave you, in between your right temple and in between your left eye, behind your two eyes and between your two ears. This is where God is. Yeah, if they were doing it right, the church would be a place for those that know God is here to come in one place to fellowship. But not to say, oh, I got saved in church. Oh, the Lord was in here today. You're lying. You're fooling yourself. You're having egregores. God is not going to be in church. The devil bit the church, and he's running all of his programs right through the church. Okay? Okay? So we're going to look at abortion and racism. I'm telling you that abortion was not legalized for white women. It wasn't. It was legalized to strategically abort Black babies. They don't have any Planned Parenthood in white neighborhoods, do they? Show me one white community where there is a Planned Parenthood. Show me. Show me. Show me one. Somebody come in the comments and say, well, there's a Planned Parenthood in this community and it's a white community. You're going to find it in Latino communities and you're going to find it in Black communities. That's it. Okay? Backed by funding from the wealthy Rockefeller Foundation, the Negro Project was a success. Okay? By 1948, Sager had hoodwinked Black Americans, Black America's best, meaning the pastors, the doctors. So it's telling you by 1949, Sanger had hoodwinked Black America's best and brightest into believing, this is what makes believing so dangerous, believe in birth control's life-saving benefits. Last thing you want to do is be a believer, because if you fall into the trap of those that are trying to kill you and you believe what they're telling you, you're going to end up dead. Okay, because they're going to feed you propaganda. Okay, Black leadership certainly wanted to decrease maternal and infant mortality and improve the community's overall health. They wholly accepted her message. They ate it hook, line, and sinker. They wholly accepted her message because it seemed to promise prosperity and social acceptance. However, aside from birth control, she offered no other medical or social solutions to their adversities. Considering the role eugenics played in the early birth control movement, the notion of birth control as seemingly the only solution to the problems that plague Blacks should have been more closely scrutinized. We got played again. I want you to understand this. Okay. Sanger lost control of the Negro Project to other members of her federation before her vision was completely achieved. However, current statistics attest to the lingering success of her strategies. Well, what are the lingering things that show the success of her strategy. Listen, 79% of Planned Parenthood surgical abortion facilities are located in or within walking distance of predominantly African American or Latino communities. African Americans have a disproportionately higher abortion rate, though they make up 13% of the U.S. population. They comprise 30% of the country's abortions. Okay. This is Planned Parenthood, all right? The Planned Parenthood is planned for you to not have any children, to keep our population at the lowest numbers of the percentage of the United States population. That's what Planned Parenthood. Okay, so if we don't go on down into the urgency of population issues, this is Bill and Melinda Gates, and they are trying to address that we need to reduce the world population. There's too many people on Earth now. The other one is Prince William in Great Britain. He's saying that there are too many people on Earth and we need to reduce the world population starting in Africa. Okay, all right. So this is what this is about. And Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, one of the reasons they started this vaccination program so that they can get into your bodies what they want to get into your bodies. And where was their primary target? Africa. Okay. So if you want to, I'm just showing you this. I'm not making it up. I don't need to make it up. All right. And this is talking about decreasing population through better health care. And they're talking about using vaccines. Okay, you see here, as did Sager, Bill Gates believes, and Eugenics Thomas Matthews ideas that the sustainability of the world's resources is completely dependent upon maintaining population control. Ironically, Gates believes that improving healthcare, primarily through vaccinations, will accomplish this. And maybe the most interesting thing I learned is that as you improve healthcare in the society, population growth goes down. This is their theory. When we improve healthcare, people won't be having as many babies. Okay? And you can read on down through here. And one of the things that they're saying is, and the fact is that healthcare leads to parents to decide, okay, we don't need to have as many children because the chance of having the less children being able to survive, to be adults, and take care of us means we don't need to have 7 to 8 children. Crazy. You're talking about people that have a different agenda, and they use propaganda to sell you what they want you to believe. So you can see this. All right. You can look at all of it. Okay. Here's the last part of this article. Okay, all lives have equal value. Okay, this is more propaganda. It remains even if well-intentioned, the activities of Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, like Margaret Sager, are in direct opposition to the teaching of the Catholic Church, as stated by Pope Francis in his. It says, instead of resolving the problems of the poor and thinking of how the world can be different, some can only propose a reduction in the birth rates. At times, developing countries face forms of international pressure which make economic assistance contingent on certain policies of reproductive control. Yet while it is true that an unequal distribution of the population and of available resources creates obstacles to development and a sustainable use of the environment, it must nonetheless be recognized that demographic growth is fully capable with an integral and shared development. To blame population growth instead of extreme and selective consumerism on the part of some is one way of refusing to face the issues. The issue is greed. The issue is greed. The issue is having a class society. The classes are the elite, the wealthy, the rich, the middle class, and the poor. And it's designed to keep as many people as possible in the bottom. Okay, so I want to, so you can read all of this. Okay, it's here for you. I'm going to show you something else. Okay, the eugenics program has progressed now to the point that they are talking about there's too many people on Earth. We need to reduce the world population. So the eugenics program is not limiting itself. Well, I'm not going to say it's not limiting itself, because the way that the propaganda is you'll see what I'm talking about. Prince William deride over African population growth. Okay, so he said that there's too many people in Africa. Critics take to social media to slam royal comments concerning pressures faced by wildlife. He has nothing to do with Africa. Why would he have any concern about the wildlife in Africa? Your kingdom is in Great Britain. Well, you don't even have a kingdom yet. Your father does. But I think all of you were thrown out of Great Britain, weren't you? You're not in Great Britain anymore. I mean, Great Britain doesn't have Great Britain, France, Germany, Belgium. You guys don't have anything to do with Africa now. The wildlife, the people, and nothing else. So here you have Bill Gates, and here you have Prince William being caught and talking about the African people are going to suffer from climate change and the world heating up. Well, wait a minute. Africa, the equator runs straight through Africa. If I'm not mistaken, in Kenya, they have right there in the middle of a street a painting that shows this is the equatorial line. And I've seen experiments or demonstrations where a lady, she had a bowl of water, and she would stand on this side of the equator, and she put a leaf on top, and the leaf would start spinning around the bowl this way. She would step from the northern hemisphere, because the equatorial line separates the northern hemisphere from the southern hemisphere. So when she stood on the side of the line of the northern hemisphere, the leaf would circle clockwise. She stepped one step over the equator, and the leaf would circle counterclockwise. This is why in America, when you flush the toilet, the water circles clockwise down the drain. If you're in the southern hemisphere and you flush the toilet, the water circles counterclockwise. Just something I want to throw in there. Okay, so I'm linking all of this to eugenics, because everything that Bill Gates is saying, everything that Prince William is saying, and all of these greedy people, and greed can't be satisfied, they're using this propaganda to say that through vaccines and through other means, eugenics programs, we need to reduce the world population. The reason that they're saying that now is because they don't need people to be their worker bees. They have the technology now that is robotics, automated systems are all going to replace the working people. Okay. Okay. So Prince William, he's pushing real hard for depopulation, and he spoke about overpopulation remarks will do women no favors. So, as I mentioned, the whole Bible and everything, it doesn't respect women. It doesn't people that wrote this Bible, they have no regard or respect for women. They're not going to do women any favors. You are just one step above the black people, the Negro and the nigger. Okay, so this is what he's saying. He's doing women no favors. Okay, and here, this is from CNN. All right. When it comes to overpopulation as the cause of wildlife loss in Africa, Prince William just won't let it go. He's saying that overpopulation is the cause of the wildlife having problems in Africa. Propaganda. As I was looking for reactions to the speech, the second in line to the British throne gave at an award ceremony on Monday, where he said the increasing pressure on Africa's wildlife and wild spaces as a result of human population presents a huge challenge for conservationists. I stumbled upon near identical remarks he made 4 years ago. In my lifetime, this is him quoted again, in my lifetime, we have seen global wildlife populations decline by over half. The prince is reported as having said in 2017 at a gala for the same charity. The Tusk Trust, Africa rapidly growing human population is predicted to more than double by 2050, a staggering increase of 3.5 million people per month. There is no question that this increase puts wildlife and habitat under enormous pressure. Then, as now, people have been quick to point out two things. The first is the Duke of Cambridge hypocrisy. Here's a man who determined his own family size, travels frequently by air, and live in a lavish lifestyle, has the highest carbon footprint. They're talking about Great Britain now. In one of the world's top 15 energy consuming countries. Mind you, energy consumption is a limited measure of the UK's environment impact, as Britain largely imports its goods. Someone else, China, is accounting for the energy used to produce those goods. So he's saying, he's spreading propaganda to get people to buy in that we need to reduce the population in China and Africa. Okay? All right? And he has no foundation for that. Great Britain is overcrowded, not Africa. Second challenge to the prince's statement centered on the inaccurate conclusion drawn about Africa's rising population. While Africa's population is indeed growing, it remains more sparsely populated than Europe or Asia. Indigenous communities that live closest to wildlife are typically excellent custodians of the environment, as their survival depends on it. And again, it is a human behavior, not human numbers, that more directly harm the biosphere. Right? So they made their mind up that we're going to reduce this world population and we're going to get rid of Africans. We're going to get rid of niggers. Okay, we don't need slaves anymore. We're going to come back and take everything you have again. You can't defend yourself. You have no nuclear weapons. You have no weapons of mass destruction. As I mentioned in a previous video, Great Britain is a little small thing like this. You want to call it a country or nation, go ahead, that's fine. Africa is a continent. It's not a country. Africa has 54 countries that make up one continent. The Caribbeans have 14 nations, which means that on Earth there are 68 black nations. Out of these 68 black nations, no other ethnic group comes close to having any numbers close to 68. White nations, Asian nations, or nothing else. Out of the 68 black nations, not one black nation became a nation through colonization where black people went in and took the land from the indigenous people of that land. No black nation has transported natives from another land and forced them into slavery on their land. No black nation has ever taken over a nation and forced their language, culture, history, and religion or spirituality on those people. No black nation has a nuclear weapon or a weapon of mass destruction. So what I'm telling you is, all black nations have always had what the United Nations has been seeking and fighting and killing people for the last 100 years. Peace. The United Nations is supposed to be a peace organization, a European peace organization. The black nations have never needed a United Nations. We were always united. We never took from each other. We never made each other, we never did these things. The African nations have the right to be who they want to be. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you being different than me. That's what makes the world a beautiful place. When you have diversity, when you can have tribes that say, I want to live in our ancestral traditions. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And to have another group of people, usually Europeans, I can't think of anybody else that's done this to anybody else. The elite, to come into your land and tell you, you can't live like this anymore. You're a sinner. God, you got to be saved. And to play these tricks and games, that's what needs to stop. That's what the threat is to our economy. That's what the threat is to our world population. That's what the threat is to us being who we are, the way God created us. Okay? The threat isn't population. The threat is the people that are trying to control it. Okay? So I'm trying to show you these things. Okay, I put this together a little different. It might be a little, because I'm pausing it to go to certain spots because I don't want to have you sitting while I'm thumbing through. Okay, so this is why it's important. Black people, Latino, every ethnic group that are people of color on this earth. It's important that we reclaim our history, our culture, and our spirituality. Okay, and I don't think there aren't any races or ethnic groups that are completely detached from their ancestral histories, cultures, traditions, spirituality than Africans and African Americans. The Japanese still know all of their customs, traditions, and they still practice their same things that their ancestors practiced. The Chinese, the Thailand, Taiwan, the Eskimos, the Mexicans, everybody still has that direct link to their history, their culture, their spirituality, their traditions, but black people. You know why? Because black people think Jesus is all they need. Man, they did a job on us. Okay? Well, they're not gonna get past me, get to my family. Now, I'm not saying that my children and my grandchildren may still choose to wait on, well, they're not gonna be waiting on Jesus, okay? Because that era is over. They've already told you the New World Religion has a new God. And just so you know, if you look it up, it's called the Abrahamic Faith House. They are accepting all three religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They're now saying, regardless of which one of these religions you practice, as long as you as long as you are following one of the descendants of Abraham's teachings, good enough, you get to go to heaven. So this is a business. And it's not going out of business until you put it out of business. I'm going to end with this, but let me back up. Okay, I did a search. I want to show you that eugenics hasn't gone anywhere, and it's been camouflaged. They don't say, well, this is a eugenics program, but I'm going to show you some examples of modern day eugenics, who lives and who dies. Okay, and that's what the original eugenics program was, is what type of life should exist and what type of life shouldn't. So we're going to go down here, and before I go down there, let's just go down a little bit. Okay, eugenics today, sterilization continues. Eugenics was everywhere 100 years ago. We still live with eugenics programs. Eugenics isn't dead. It's striving and tech. Trump and the new eugenics movement. So the eugenics program hasn't gone anywhere. Trump and the new eugenics movement. All right. You remember when he was campaigning and he was saying, we have good genes. We have, near the end of his first term, September the 18th, 2020, my battery is low. So 1 second. Okay. Nearing the end of his first term, on September the 18th, 2020, President Trump invoked the racehorse theory at a campaign rally to claim that he and his followers had genetically superior bloodlines. You have good genes. You know that, right? You have good genes. A lot of it is about the genes, isn't it? You don't believe the racehorse theory. You think you're so different. You have good genes in Minnesota. All right, this is the racehorse theory. If you breed a racehorse that is a champion, he will produce champions, and this is eugenics. All right, and here's what you need to see. Most disturbingly, in the 2024 annual American Val Survey, the Public Religion Research Institute found that 1/3, 34% of Americans agreed with Trump's statement that immigrants entering the country illegally were poisoning the blood of our country. Looking deeper, it noted that 6 of 10 Republicans, 61%, almost 1/3 of independents, and 13% of Democrats agreed with the statement. They agree that this is eugenics, is what I'm trying to show you. To be able to selectively say who is making a better gene pool and who is making our gene pool worse is hypocrisy. Okay? Because if you go back far enough in Donald Trump's gene pool, he had some poor, unworthy people that, per this eugenics, didn't deserve to live. Okay, so to say that a person coming in that's an immigrant that would come into America and fall in love with a white woman, an Asian woman, a black woman, a white woman, or vice versa, a white man, vice versa, and have children, that those children's bloodline is tainted and they can't be good, positive people in the society, good, productive people, it's crazy. Now remember something. I'm going to show you how crazy that statement is. Who were the Europeans that were shipped over here on the Ninta, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria? They were not George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and all of these guys. You have to remember something. Europe was running a eugenics program. In Europe, this is what got the unwanted, the undesirable, that very poor gene pool kicked out of Europe. They were deemed undesirables they were deemed the lowest of the lowest class in Europe, because all of Europe, they were killing each other. They weren't at peace. They were robbing each other. Okay? Now, when Europe said, we're going to clean up Europe, and they had, Columbus had found America. He didn't discover it. I'll never say Columbus discovered America again. But when he came back and reported that he had all of this land, and they had discovered all of this land over here in the New World, okay, the Europeans said, okay, we're going to clean up Europe, and we're going to make laws, simple laws, that, okay, for an example, if they saw you spit on the street, you had to go to court, you'd be found guilty, and your sentence would either be death or go to the New World and be an indentured servant for 7 years. You choose. You want to die? You want to stay here and die? Or you want to get on a boat and go to America? Drunken public. All of these, they made up enough stupid laws just to find the undesirables guilty and ship them out of here. So for Donald Trump to say, to let these people in to this country is going to destroy our good blood, that's exactly what they did when the Europeans came. They came into this country with their bad blood because they had already been deemed undesirable people through the eugenics programs in Europe. And when they came here, now what? They're great people? They were savages. Okay, they were undesirables. They were the worst of the worst. So when they got here, they decided to, okay, well, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, all of these people, the founding fathers, the rich people in Europe, when they had sent enough of the undesirables into this country, and the elite said, well, we need to send our representatives over here to control the undesirables. That's when the Thomas Jefferson, the Ben Franklins, and George Washington, all of them came into this country, and they started giving them hundreds of thousands of acres of land. So be very careful believing. Believing is a very dangerous business. Anytime somebody tells you, you need to believe, you need to tell them, stop. I need to know. I don't want to believe. I'm out of the believing business. I'm out of the believing game. I will never be a believer again. Believing is what got my people into this mess. So don't let anyone convince you that things are better, because they're getting ready to show you through technology, things are a lot worse. Okay? They have a lot better controlling factors now. Now they're moving to the new world age that if you're a criminal, you can't escape, because you can't put $100,000 or $200,000 in a suitcase and leave. And wherever you go, you can still survive. Now they have the type of control on you that if they want to shut you down, they just shut down your digital currency. Money, you won't be able to buy a grain of salt with a $100 bill because it's no longer going to be active. So when you're talking about, well, it's going to get better, when? You really think so? If you are not compliant to their laws, wishes, and wills, they will shut you down. You remember Kanye West, and I'm getting ready to go. Kanye West, when he was talking about the Jews and all of these people, you remember what they did to him? They shut his bank account down. He's a billionaire. And they shut down Kanye West because they can control his money. Yeah, it's your money until they decide that you can't spend it. It's your money. We're going to leave it here for you. But Until you do what we say, you can't spend it. So be very, very careful. Please wake up. Don't pass this on to your children, your grandchildren. Start your YouTube channel and do the same thing I'm doing. So that when this new confusion, well, it's not going to be new confusion for them because they're born into it. But they need to be aware that this is history repeating itself, okay, especially on Black people and people of color. And now they're at the point that they're going to flip it back on white people too. The same way that they did in between the year 500 AD and the year 1500. For 1,000 years, the only people that these elite killed were white people in Europe. And you're finding that out now. The people that voted for Donald Trump. And now you don't have a job 3 months later, 4 months later. Yeah, I spoke with a good friend of mine, Bernard. And he said, Doc, well, a lot of people call me Doc because my father was a doctor. He said, Doc, you know, I looked at my portfolio and I lost 15%. I was like, yeah, okay. So everybody's feeling this. And the man in charge doesn't care. He's telling you you'll be all right. How are you going to be all right and you've lost your farm? The lady in Nebraska that was crying about her farm. She's getting ready to lose her farm. And she said, Black people, please help us. Don't you feel sorry for us? Of course I feel sorry for you because it was done to us. Okay? Will y'all march with us? Well, if you voted for Donald Trump, I know you didn't march with us when we were marching for George Floyd. When we were marching for the young lady that the police went into her house and shot her to death in her kitchen. Were you marching with us? No, I'm not going to march with you. I'll pray for you. Okay, but I'm not going to march with you. I saw an advertisement. Let me see if I can find one right quick and then we're going to go. Okay, Nebraska is hurting so bad, not just for Nebraska, Iowa. And if you do a search on Iowa or Nebraska or any of these Midwest states that are farmers, they're hurting so bad that they're begging people to come pick their crops. This one is from Indeed. I saw another one for $13 an hour to come be a picker in Nebraska. And this lady was crying. She was like, please help us, Black people. Will y'all please help us? We'll be glad to hire you. This was an advertisement, and please come work for us for $13 an hour picking crops. You should see the comments. I mean, it's not funny, but it is, because nobody did this to you, Miss in Nebraska. You did it to yourself with your vote. You put a man in office that told you, as soon as I get in, I'm kicking out all of the illegal immigrants that pick your crops. So they're crying for pickers, but they're advertising $13 an hour, and people are like, no, you had Latinos that will work for you for $13 an hour. I'm not working for $13 an hour. Okay? The only people that America is really going to get to do these jobs are the Latinos, and they're Donald Trump's target. You went against your own best interests. For what? So that Jim Vance can own your farm? Because that's who's going to own it. Because it's reported that Nebraska will go bankrupt in 6 months if they're not able to harvest their crops. And this was before China. When Trump raised his tariffs on China, I think to 125%, China's response was, well, we're not going tit for tat with you. We're gonna put tariffs on your farmers. So now the farmers are under threat from Donald Trump's policies of removing illegal immigrants. And now they're under attack and threat from China, who is saying, we're putting tariffs on you, that everything you need, you're going to have to pay the tariffs for it coming into your country. So you're not only going to have to find people that are willing to work for $13 an hour that are not Hispanic-ers. If you look at a Hispanic going on their job, man, they going there, they working. They're not slacking, they're not taking breaks. They're doing they work hard. I give the Latinos all the credit in the world. You guys have got yourselves together. You know how to stay unified. It doesn't matter if you get one house and 15 people live in it. That's how you work. That's how you get together. You get 18 people in a house that all of them work for $13 an hour, and all of that money comes in that same house. In 5 years, 8 years, everybody in that house will have a house. Black people, we don't have that unity anymore. They destroyed it. It's important that we get it back. But here's the deal. The Chinese have put tariffs on the farmers. You guys are in trouble. Okay, I'm going to pray for you, I'm going to pray to Jesus to help you, okay? And you let me know if he shows up, because he hasn't shown up for anybody else. I just want to show you a couple things about eugenics still exists today. They are talking about having the ability that if the ultrasound of a child with Down syndrome or other defects is not picked up, that the taxpayers will have to pay a lot of money for this child's care and education, and it would be better, as you says here, cost taxpayers too much in special education. It would be better in his opinion, to just abort the child. That's eugenics. Another form of eugenics that everybody knows about but doesn't know as a part of the eugenics program is in vitro fertilization, and being able to look at a catalog of men's pictures and pick out who the father is. Then you have the in vitro fertilization capabilities of choosing whether your child has dark skin, light skin, blue eyes, green eyes, black eyes, brown eyes. It is picking out the ability for a parent to be able to go to an in vitro fertilization and pick out the characteristics and the genetics of your child. The genetic characteristics of your child. That's eugenics. Okay, so I didn't want to leave that out. And so I'm just going to put this a little bit in, and to show you that eugenics is still here today. You just never knew it was a eugenics program. The second part is the eugenics program, they're not going to need it now because they're going to give it to you through your food, through the mRNA, through the messenger RNA that they're going to put in your food that attacks certain genotypes.